A little cleavage for you boys out there. So we finished the last one with Hell Knight. We'll kind of start this one with Hell Knight. Again, not much else to talk about it. Like I said, it's a cool poster. Pay $20, $30 for it. If you're looking for a movie to watch on Halloween, you like 80s flick, this is a good little flick to watch. And I said Linda Blair is in it. She was, of course, best known as Ray McNeil from The Exorcist. Did a lot of horror movies. An exploitation chain Heat, Women in Prisons film comes to mind. She kind of looks down on those days back then, but if you get this on DVD, there's a commentary track, and she actually participates in the commentary, along with Erwin Yablans there. Anyways, I just wanted to kind of quickly finish off. I felt a little rushed in the last video with Hell Knight, so let you look at it a little bit more. I don't think I have much else to say about it. And then we'll move on to Squirm. 70s flick. Just very, very, very cool image. An American international release. Written and directed by Jeff Lieberman. Basically, I think some fallen power cables hit the ground during the storm, electrifies the ground, earthworms go crazy, start swarming and eating people. That's all you need for a 70s movie. There was a lot of nature gone amok type films back then. Have watched a movie fairly recently. I guess it's still okay to watch. You like 70s horror films. They're cheapy, but it's okay. You just can't beat this artwork. This is very cool. If I'd ever heard a scene in this movie before, I would have gotten it just for that. Rated R. Let the camera impose the image. Came out in 1976. It also says there, 169. 169th poster. This version of the poster come out. Let's go on to Creepshow, some 80s fun. Masters of Terror and the Macabre. George A. Romero of Stephen King, Creepshow. This was an anthology flick which kind of died out by the 80s, but there are a few. An anthology movie. It's a movie that's basically comprised of short films. In this case there was 5, and there's usually kind of a wraparound story to try to tie all the films together. This started out, Stephen King and George Romero were kind of friends, they knew each other, and they started talking about the old EC Comics, Tales from the Crypt type stuff from the 50s. And they thought it'd be fun to make a similar type movie. Now Romero, he talked with King, just thought it was an idea, something they might do a couple years down the road. That's not how Stephen King works. A couple months later he called out, it's like, yep, I got the stories here, pretty much. He was ready to go on this sucker. It probably helps that Stephen King was a massive cokehead during the 80s, so he pretty much would write for 8 hours straight with tissue paper shoved up his nose to stop the bleeding from the coke. Has nothing to do with this movie, but I just thought I'd throw that in there. So there's 5 films done in Tales from the Crypt type mode. Tom Savini did, if not most, if not all, the effects. Of course, he collaborated with George Romero quite a bit. He worked on Dawn of the Dead. Tom Savini's highly celebrated special effects makeup man. It has there's a couple different versions of this particular poster. I've seen the European version of it, but I definitely like this one. Very cool skeleton in the ticket booth. Some people in the movie: Hal Holbrook, Adrienne Barbeau, Leslie Nielsen, E.G. Marshall. Let's see, Leslie Nielsen is best known for the Naked Gun movies, and done a lot of comedy in those Naked Gun type veins, but he's actually, up till he did Naked Gun, did a lot of serious roles. He actually plays the bad guy in this movie, exacting revenge on Ted Danson, who was Sam Malone in Cheers. But it's alright. He takes care of Sam Malone, and then Sam Malone ends up taking care of him later on. Actually, Leslie Nielsen, he's known for Funny Man, does play a pretty convincing bad guy. Adrienne Barbeau, if you're a fan of 80s and B movies. She's done quite a bit. And she's Swamp Thing, as my cameraman has whispered. Which is directed by Wes Craven, who did Nightmare on Elm Street. Adrienne Barbeau's worked with Romero on another film as well, which also had Tom Savini doing the, I want to say it was Two Evil Eyes was the name of the movie. And Hal Holbrook, actually Adrienne Barbeau and Hal Holbrook have both worked together on The Fog, John Carpenter's The Fog, the original one from roughly 1980. In Creepshow they play husband and wife in this, so they have they're in the short together. Like I said, there's 5. Actually, I should, I guess, point out Stephen King himself is in the second one. Sad tale, I'm trying, the tragic tale of, forget the character's name, but it's the second story in Creepshow. Stephen King not only wrote it, but he stars in it. A lot of people rag on it for the bad acting. I always liked it, I thought it was pretty funny. Overall, Creepshow is a pretty cool 80s fun, almost comic book styled movie. It did spawn a sequel, which only had 3 stories to it. Whereas all these stories were original creations, not based off anything else. Creepshow 2 is based off previous stories from Stephen King. They were going to make a third one, never really came about. To an extent, there was a Tales from the Dark Side from the movie, and basically George Romero kind of considers that the third Creepshow movie. It even includes a couple stories that were going to be in Creepshow 2. They end up using it for Tales from the Dark Side for the movie. But that's Creepshow, folks. I would like to get a Creepshow 2 poster one day. Haven't yet. Talking about Creepshow. Let's move on to Dead and Buried. Like the poster, don't really care for the movie. I thought it was boring. I do remember it coming on HBO quite a bit when I was a kid. Never got into it then. I tried watching it now. There's fans of it, but I guess it's an okay flavor. It's kind of boring. It's never really worked for me. I just really love the image. I love the coloring, the kind of bluish tones as such, the face coming out of the ground like that. And a nice title, if nothing else, Dead and Buried. The creators of Alien bring a new terror to Earth. Came out in 1981. Rated R. Dan O'Bannon, which is the guy who worked on Alien. So that's your Alien connection right there. Then we're going to move on to Shockwaves, which has the tagline, "Once they were almost human. Beyond the living, beyond the dead, from the depths of hell's ocean. Shockwaves." Cheap 70s movie, has Peter Cushing in it. British actor, best known for all the old Hammer movies from the 50s to the 70s. Played Van Helsing in the mini Dracula movies, as well as Dr. Frankenstein in Hammer's Frankenstein films. And just worked with Christopher Lee quite a bit. He's in Star Wars. Grand Admiral. Can't remember. I'm not a big enough Star Wars fan to remember his name anymore. I want to say Moltaka or something like that. Though Peter Cushing was in this, they only had him for a limited time, maybe 4 or 5 days. His part seems a lot bigger in the movie, but they only had him for a few days, so they filmed all this stuff at once. But in the movie, it gets edited and spread out, so it makes it look like he was probably in the movie and had more to do with it than he really did. John Carradine, another guy's been probably at least 1,000 movies, done tons of B-movie stuff. Had a lot of problems with, by this point, having a lot of problems with arthritis. I think he was taking drugs to help ease it, had a bad drug addiction. He usually just did things for payday. As for what the movie's about, basically Nazis try to create different super soldiers to do different things, or try to create basically water. These soldiers who could survive and breathe under the water. But a ship goes down back in World War II. A small group of people end up like at an abandoned motel. There's some kind of weird freakish storm. The ship actually rises back up. It frees our water zombies, our water Nazi zombies, but then terrorize our heroes. That's also why they were, once they were almost human. They were Nazis, so they weren't really human to begin with. Get it? Yeah, it's an okay flick. I kind of like it. A lot of people don't. It's a very cool poster. I think they filmed it in Florida. They actually found a large resort that was abandoned. They used that there. The ship they actually used was a ship that's not quite sunk. It's been sitting for many decades. They show it from a distance as it's kind of sitting above the water. That was a ship for the zombies. And I don't think it's about it. Came out, looks like 77, and folks, I think I'm going to cut it off here on this video, and we'll start up a next video with From Beyond.